A 40-mile march through the Appalachian Mountains alone, carrying 70 pounds on your back and with no idea how much farther you have left, ends more Delta Force careers than any firefighter mission. But why does this ordeal shatter elite soldiers who have survived everything else? The devastating answer starts long before the first step. In 1962, a young American officer named Charles Beckwith arrived in the Welsh Mountains as part of an exchange with Britain's Special Air Service. What he saw there would shape the future of American special operations. The Special Air Service selection course, already legendary, ended with a test known as the Long Drag, a 40-mile solo march over the Brecon Beacons, carrying a heavy pack and rifle, with nothing but a map, a compass, and a starting point. There were no time checks, no encouragement, no signposts. Candidates moved alone through the mist and bogs, not knowing how close they were to the finish or if they had already failed. Most did not make it. The pass rate hovered near 10%, and the men who finished did so because they refused to stop, even when every rational thought told them to quit. Beckwith studied every detail. He watched candidates stagger into the final checkpoint, hollow-eyed and silent, their faces giving nothing away. The cadre offered no praise, no hint of success. Instead, they handed out another grid coordinate or simply told them to keep moving. The lesson was clear. The real test was not the distance or the weight. It was the ability to keep going with no external validation, to operate in total isolation, relying only on internal resolve. David Sterling, the founder of the Special Air Service, had insisted that special operations demanded a different breed, a soldier who could function alone, without orders, without applause, and without knowing if the effort would ever be recognized. When Beckwith returned to the United States, he carried this philosophy with him. Years later, as he built Delta Force from scratch, he designed the selection process around this same principle. The culminating event would mirror the SAS model, not just in distance or terrain, but in psychological design. Candidates would face a 40-mile march through the Appalachian wilderness, burdened with 55 to 70 pounds of gear and stripped of any information that might comfort them. There would be no time limit announced, no checkpoint tally, no finish line in sight. The only certainty was the weight on their back and the voice in their head. This was the long walk. This was not an accident or a tradition for tradition's sake. Beckwith wanted to find men who could function when everything familiar was gone. No team, no guidance, no feedback. The long walk was built to expose anyone who needed reassurance or direction. Only those who could generate their own momentum, who could endure the silence and uncertainty, would make it to the end. The philosophy was simple. If a man could survive this, he might survive the chaos and isolation of real-world missions where no one is coming to tell you the outcome. The American Long Walk became a direct descendant of the SAS Long Drag, a deliberate filter for a kind of internal drive that cannot be taught, only revealed. Selection begins with manageable distances and loads, but each day brings a new demand. The first navigation exercises cover about 18 miles, rucks weighing 35 pounds. Candidates move through dense forest over uneven ground, learning to trust a compass and a paper map. The pace is brisk but not yet punishing. Sleep is rationed, 3 to 4 hours a night, sometimes less. Meals are stripped to essentials, leaving candidates in a constant state of hunger. By the end of the first week, the body starts to protest. Caloric intake drops below 2,000 per day, while energy expenditure soars above 6,000. Fat reserves vanish and muscle starts to break down. As the days pass, the rucksack grows heavier. By week 2, it weighs close to 50 pounds. The routes stretch longer, sometimes over 20 miles, with elevation gains that leave legs trembling. The terrain is never predictable. Steep ridgelines, thick underbrush, streams that soak boots and sap warmth. Small navigation errors add miles and hours. There are no shortcuts and no one to help. Every step is a solitary calculation: pace, bearing, distance, fatigue. Sleep deprivation deepens. Nights grow colder and the mind drifts during long hours alone. Candidates hallucinate shapes in the trees, lose track of time, and forget when they last ate or drank. Blisters form under calloused feet, joints swell, and backs ache from the unrelenting weight. Stress fractures begin quietly, a dull ache in the shin or foot that intensifies with each mile. By the third week, the rucksack reaches up to 70 pounds for some. The cumulative effect is visible. Shoulders slope under the load. Faces hollow out. Hands tremble when tying boots. Some candidates limp. Others hide injuries, knowing that any sign of weakness could end their chance. The sleep deficit is now profound. Most have not had a full night's rest in weeks. The body's reserves are gone. Hunger is constant, but food rations remain minimal. Every candidate arrives at the final event depleted. The body is battered, the mind dulled by exhaustion and hunger. The progression is deliberate. Each mile, each sleepless night, each calorie burned without replacement, brings candidates closer to the absolute limit of endurance. The long walk begins when there is nothing left to draw from except willpower. Every candidate begins the long walk with a single grid coordinate, a paper map, and a compass. There is no briefing, no explanation of the route, and no mention of how far they will actually travel. The cadre hand over the starting point in silence. Watches are forbidden. GPS is off limits. The only certainty is the weight of the rucksack, anywhere from 55 to 70 pounds, packed with water, food, weapon, and required gear. The rest is a void. Moving alone, each candidate must navigate the Appalachian terrain without knowing if the next checkpoint is 1 mile away or 10. The silence is absolute. When a checkpoint appears, the process is mechanical. Hand over the map, receive a new grid coordinate, and keep moving. No words of encouragement. No clues about progress. No sign of how many checkpoints remain. The cadre's faces reveal nothing, offering neither relief nor warning. Candidates are left to guess whether they are ahead, behind, or already out of the running. This vacuum is by design. Every step is weighed down by uncertainty. There is no feedback on speed or accuracy, no confirmation that the route is correct. A wrong turn costs hours, but there is no way to know until another grid arrives, or does not. Some candidates start to question if they have made a mistake miles back. Others wonder if the silence means they have already failed. The only information allowed is the terrain underfoot and the numbers on the compass. Doubt grows with each mile, fed by the deliberate absence of answers. At some point during the long walk, the breaking point arrives, not always as a dramatic collapse, but often as a silent decision. Retired candidates describe the moment in simple terms. The legs still move, the compass still points north, but the mind refuses to take another step into the unknown. For many, that surrender is not a failure of strength, but the end of a private negotiation with doubt. In one selection class, nearly 40% of those who survived weeks of punishment quit during the march itself. Some sat down beside the trail, removed their boots, and waited for cadre to collect them. Others kept moving until their bodies gave out, forcing a medical evacuation. A retired special operations medic recalls the aftermath as a blur of bandages and IV drips. Candidates arrived at the aid station with feet shredded, blisters peeled raw, toenails gone, skin sloughing off in sheets. Stress fractures in the shins and feet were so common that X-rays became routine. More severe cases showed signs of rhabdomyolysis, swollen limbs, dark urine, and muscle breakdown that threatened kidney failure. A few were so dehydrated or so hypothermic that helicopter evacuation was the only option. The physical toll lingered for weeks. Some candidates could not walk unaided for days, their bodies wrecked by the effort to keep moving long after reason said stop. Yet the real filter was not the injuries. It was the moment when uncertainty became unbearable, when the mind, not the body, drew the line. The long walk's true cost is measured in decisions made alone, in silence, with no promise of reward. Those who kept moving did so for reasons only they could answer. Right now, fewer than 15% of candidates ever cross that invisible finish line. In a world obsessed with metrics, Delta's true measure remains unseen: willpower in the face of total uncertainty. Because the hardest battles on any ground are still the ones fought alone, with no guarantee you'll be told you've won.